compared to if everybody. And we hope that this, in turn, will lead to high quality professional development activities for both novice and in-service teachers, which will ultimately increase student engagement and learning outcomes in the region. And as Dr. Critchaside just mentioned, we need to be able to develop these students in ways that they can deal with all of the new things that are coming out week by week. I'd like to thank all the speakers who are there today for sharing your insights about effective STEM education, particularly from Japan and the US, which we can all learn from. Professor Nomura, if you're on the line, I'm very excited to hear about the Japanese experience because personally, most of my knowledge about STEM education is from Southeast Asia. So I'm looking forward to discovering a whole new context from Northern Asia from you today. And Dr. Krajcik, thank you very much for traveling all the way from Michigan State University to be with the group for the entire week. I think we quite possibly passed each other in an aeroplane somewhere above Asia. You know, Michigan State University is one of the great universities here in the US, and it's known as being a leader in the evidence-based STEM movement, which is transforming STEM education in the US. From my personal perspective, it's a real honor to have a global innovator and a thought leader such as yourself with us to share your views on how we can improve teaching and learning in our region in Southeast Asia and also in Kazakhstan. And finally, I want to thank the team from Simeo STEMEd who initiated this partnership and of course worked very hard to bring together this workshop. I really wanted to also thank the teams from Caravan of Knowledge and Simeo Semilec for engaging a fantastic group of partners for this program, and to everybody who's travelled to Bangkok to be part of the program today. It's a really wonderful collaboration, and I wish you all a very productive and thought-provoking week. I'm really looking forward to hearing at the end of the week all of the outcomes you've achieved together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee Durban, the Senior Social Investment Advisor from Chevron Corporation, USA. Thank you very much for your inspiring remarks. And thank you again for our project executives for setting the tone for the day and sharing their valuable insights. So now let's move to our next session, where we will dive into the successful implementation of STEM education in Japan. Our esteemed speaker, Professor Dr. Tairo Nomura, the Director of STEM Education Research Center at Saitama University, will be joining us virtually to share his experience. So Professor Nomura present position is Associate Professor in Clinical Study of School Education, Faculty of Education, and Graduate School of Education, Saitama University, Japan. His major area of specialties are educational technology, instructional design, human interface, information education, science and technology education. And his interest is how to cultivate teachers' ability of the designing STEM education, elementary and junior high school curriculum. So now we are so honored that we have Dr. Nomura here with us now. So please welcome Dr. Nomura. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Can you hear me? Hello.
We certainly can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Can I start my presentation?
Sure, please.
Okay. So I'd like to share my slide today. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me as one of the presenter today. I'm very happy to share this time with all of the audiences. And my name is Tairo Nomura. I'm the associate professor of the Saitama University and also the director of the STEM Education Research Center in Saitama University. And today I'd like to show some of the recent topics related to the STEM education in Japan, especially about how the recent Japanese pre-service education situation, especially how can we adapt to the new type education such as the STEM education. So now I'm working in the Saitama University for the serving the pre-service education to our students. Most of our students will become the elementary school teachers in the public school in Japan. So let's start my presentation. First of all, I'd like to show the recent situation about of the education system in Japan, especially related to the STEM. And I know that all of you know both words, STEM and STEAM. In Japan, Ministry of Education and Ministry of Industry and Economy both using STEAM as their many the strategies. But in my point of view, basically both words mean same. So in this presentation, mainly I'm using STEM. But someone wonder what is A. I put some information about what we are thinking. How can we treat A in STEM education? If I have more time, I can describe the details. But you can see some the information in my slides. So let's start. Okay, first of all, in Japan, actually, STEM or STEAM, the word STEM or STEAM is not famous in Japan because there are some reasons, but main reason is because the concept of the STEM and STEAM or STEAM education is not new in Japanese school because already we have the similar or same concept in our national curriculum. Okay, so this is the brief information about the Japanese national curriculum situation. The latest national curriculum was revised in 2018. And now all the school categories started new in the new national curriculums. In our new national curriculums, we have we already have the period integrated learning subject since 1998. This subject is for from the grade 3 to 12 compulsory, and also before this subject, already we introduced life environment study subject since 1989. That is the replacement of the science, social studies, and home economics subject combined together. So so we can say that now that we are having the a kind of the integrated learning subject from grade 1 to 12 compulsory. In those subjects, using the inquiry-based learning method to promoting student problem-solving ability to contribute making our society better. So goal of those subjects is cultivate competence of independent problem solving for various social issues in the world. We think this goal is same concept as STEM education. So in our research group, we can say our period of integrated learning is Japanese style STEM education. That is why I'm saying we already have the same concept of the STEM education in Japan. From this point of view, Japanese schools and teachers have already more than 20 years experience of STEM education. And also the latest national curriculum, this number is the 2018. Okay, focus on STEM much more to encourage to expand inquiry-based learning opportunity in school curriculum. Okay, but there are some problems. One is the now we and our teachers are trying to implement the new way of teaching in school, but more serious problem is that recently many students have less motivated to learning in school. So how can we treat these issues? That is another topics related to the STEM education. And one more thing is that we need more reality in school. That means that not only in Japan, but also many countries faced the similar problem. Now our real world is more advanced than school. So in school, there is no reality like the real society. So we need more reality in school, and we need to connect. We need the more connection to the society. Those are the issues to implement and promote the STEM education, integrated learning in Japan. So I'm summarized another reason why STEM is not famous in Japan is because already we have the national curriculum that try to conduct the STEM education, but especially the primary school level, but not only primary, but all the school grade, the many teachers feel difficulty of learning teaching STEM field. And many teachers are not integrated in STEM, not interested in STEM field themselves. And one more thing is that not focused on technology and engineering concept in school education nowadays, from now, until now. So the latest national curriculum focus on teaching specific content of each subject rather than the specific content of each subject. Teacher has to teach point of views and way of thinking that is connected to the technology concept in STEM education. But still, teachers are trying to teach just contents of the textbook and hard to retrieve what is the point of views and way of thinking in each subject. And one more thing is the school teachers tend to solve problems with unclear goals. Okay, so the problem solving is the quite same concept as engineering. So that means that schools teachers are not familiar with engineering concept. So the result of this situation, there are so many issues in school, but never solved those problems essentially. So that is why still the STEM concept is not famous in Japan, but we are now trying to implement. So, okay, before the continue my presentation, I'd like to tell you what is our point of view of STEM education. What do you think the do you teach the STEM education for who? Okay, so for example, how can you answer this this question? Do you need robot technology in your life? Okay, so for the professionals like the robotics engineer or the scientist, the answer is always yes, because to improve the robotics technology is their job. Okay, so they want to think how to get money, okay, using robot technology. But most of all the peoples, we need another point of views. Okay, so of course nowadays our society is improved by advanced scientific technologies, so we need to interested in STEM field. Okay, but we have to think much more about our better life. So how can we use those STEM fields, knowledge skills to improve our daily life? Okay, so we have to study scientific mathematical sense, viewpoint of lifelong learning. And also we have to know, we have to understand the responsibility of using technology rather than just taking those the technology. So in our research project, we have to think the STEM education, especially in the public schools, we have to stand on this point of view for the citizens. So of course, for the professional education, like the vocational education, we need more the professionals' point of views. But so I'm not sure that today which category of the schools teachers coming. So, but I'm now I myself talking from the point of view of the public school teachers, especially for the elementary level and junior high levels. Okay, so now the Japanese government try to move forward Japanese school system toward the society 5.0. Maybe Society 5.0 is the popular not only in Japan but also in the world. So then we have to think how can we implement the new school systems. So the Japanese government introduced the new concept of the Japanese education in 2020 first. Okay, there are two main concepts to improve the Japanese school system. Okay, one is the optimization of the learning style for each individual students. Okay, optimize means the mainly the how to optimize the usage of time for learning and making time. How can we make the time for STEM activities? That means Japanese government more focusing on the STEM education rather than the usual the education. Okay, to realize this first concept, school should become more flexible to fit the various needs for various students. Not only just the special need education, but also this time the Japanese government focused the gifted students. That is very, very new direction of the Japanese education. Okay, and to optimize the usage of time, then mainly the Japanese government think that teachers and schools can use ICT for the reducing the workload of the usual teacher's activity and more focus on the teaching itself. Okay, and second one is the inquiry-based learning with collaborative, cooperative way to connect among students and society in various paths. Okay, so this is come from the issues I mentioned before. Okay, and the second concept try to let students face real social problem to motivate learning. Okay, so, and try to focus more essential learning. Okay, and the more emphasize the ability of the how the student can apply what learned in usual subject to real world problem through STEM activities. And finally, they try to focus the point of views and way of thinking in several several subjects they study. And also, nowadays our society is improving very, very rapidly by the very advanced technology, scientific technology like the AI. So from the second point, we have to focus on what the human have to do and what should we pass to the machine. Okay, so this is we can call the how the teacher ourselves have to think which part the teacher have to teach and which part the ICT or AI can teach to the students. So we can say this is kind of the digital exchange in education. Okay, so those are the actual project related to those concepts. Okay, there are two major projects in Japan. One is the Ministry of Education, the Giga School project. Okay, that started from the 21st April. This project is aiming to pass the digital device to all the students one by one in school. So this project was pushed by the COVID-19 problem also, and now from the grade 1 to 9, all the students using their own devices in school to study and learning. Okay, most local government lend the laptop or tablet to students one by one, but some local government introduced BYOD, especially in senior high school level. So now all the students can use their own device in school. Maybe not so new for you. Maybe I know that, for example, in Malaysia, in 2018 or 17, already the government decided to introduce the BYOD in school, and I visited some schools in Malaysia, and I was very impressed about those situation. And this is the not so good point. There's still some hurdle to introduce digital textbook in Japan, not realized completely. But I know that several other countries already succeeded to introduce digital textbook completely to students. Okay, and the second major project is from the Ministry of Economy and Industry. Very unique point is interest point is that those two are mainly the different government department, but now they both communicate each other. But maybe there is some difference of the goals, I think. But anyway, the second project also now involved the improvement in schools. Okay, the second project named the Future Classroom, and this is mainly focusing on the DX in schools. Okay, so try to use the advanced ICT to improve school learning environment, like the Fab Lab in schools or AI as a teacher. In this project already, several junior high school or the senior high school introduce AI as a teacher in specific subject like the mathematics. I know the very famous public schools that introduce the junior high school that introduce AI teachers in mathematics. In that school, no human teacher teaching in front of the classroom in the mathematics subjects. Mainly the students studying mathematics individually by using their laptop or tablet in anywhere in school, not only in the classroom. The student can move to the library or cafeteria and any places. And only if they have doubt or they feel difficulty to learn some concept from the AI teacher, student can ask the human teacher to get advice. for some guidance. So this is a new way of the studying in school, already started in Japan. Okay, and the very remarkable result of the using AI as a teacher, this way of teaching can realize the reduce of the using of the teaching time. And one the specific result shows more than 80% reduced the time of the teaching in mathematics subject. So now the school or teacher could get more time for conducting the STEM activity. Different word, integrated study subject. So in this time, teacher can use for the cultivating student the ability of the problem solving using the inquiry-based learning. So this is the our recent project. So you can see you can find more details in Japanese government website, both the Japanese and English. I'm sorry that there is no detailed report of for example, the future classroom project in English, but you can translate using AI to your local language to know what happened in Japan. And one more thing is sorry. Wait a moment. Sorry. Sound is a bit noisy. And some more new thing is sorry.
Right.
Sorry. Sorry, I stopped the presentation and show the slide. And one more thing is the latest national curriculum improved the specific topics like the computation and data analysis related to the STEM. And latest national curriculum introduces learning computation compulsory in all school categories, from elementary school to senior high schools, compulsory. In junior high school and senior high school, there are the specific subject like the technology and home economy subject in junior high school, and in senior high school, there are new subjects named the information education. And also the focusing on the data analysis part in the especially in the mathematics subject. Okay, so those computation and data analysis topics not aiming to become to cultivate the student skills of coding, but cultivating student ability of computational thinking. So from this point of view, mainly the latest national curriculum, the improved mathematics curriculum to make more systematically teaching the data analysis the areas. These areas are connected to the statistics and also the statistics and calculation. Okay, and not only grade 1 to grade 12, but also in the university level, I myself teaching these topics also compulsory to all the students. So this is the Japanese government, the policy toward the AI generation. Also, maybe this is the unique point of the Japanese education is that in math and science, there are many scientific experiments. So in this activity is the good opportunity to get the real data and have the opportunity to practice the skills of handling data. So that is connected to how to improve the pre-service education in Japan. Now all the students studying in the pre-service education in university have to have the experience of the scientific experiment as a part of the subject in the pre-service education. Okay, and also now we have to think about how to introduce basic AI technology in school curriculum. I already told you the mathematics curriculum already reformed to become more systemically in data analysis areas. And also we have to focus on the ethical part, moral ethical part of how can we use the more advanced technology like the AI. So in this point of view, we can mention what is A of STEAM. In our research project, we treat A is not just a fine art of A, but this is the liberal arts, A of liberal arts. Okay, this means we have to teach the moral, ethics, and the various senses of values for students. That is come from the concept of the liberal arts. So if you can treat A as liberal arts, I myself agree you can use STEAM instead of STEM. But already engineering is including this concept. What kind of the sense of values we needed? Because the engineers already thinking which sense of values is important, and based on that values, try to improve and solve the problem. That is the engineering way. And also the same as that is the problem solving. So in my research project, basically we no need to say A, because the E of STEM already contains this concept, moral, ethics, and values, sense of values. So anyway, and not only just the teaching the skills and knowledge of the AI related, but also we have to cultivate student attitudes, how to use those advanced technology like the AI. So, and now, as you know, that in this year, the many educational institutes are confused about how to treat the recent AI technology like the generative AI. already the Japanese Ministry of Education shows the guideline of how we learn with generative AI. But we have to think carefully about this point. Okay, so okay, from this slide, until this slide, I showed what the Japanese situation of the STEM education, and also now that I'd like to mention about how can we adopt the professional development to the new education. In Japan, already reformed the pre-service education to add 2 specific topics related to the STEM education. Okay, one is we introduce the teaching methodology in integrated study subject. Already we have the basic subject. We already teaching the teaching methodology for the basic subjects like the Japanese languages, mathematics, social studies, like that. But we didn't have the specific subject to teaching how to teach the integrated study in school. But from the since 2018, we started this new subject to the training the university students to be able to handle the new education style, like the inquiry-based learning. And second point is we have the specific subject to teaching the theory and practice of ICT in education. Okay, and in this subject, not only just training the skills of the usage of the ordinary ICT, but also continue to discuss how to introduce more advanced technology in the school education. Okay, so those are the new in the pre-service education in Japan. And one more thing we want to mention is in my laboratory, not only in my faculty, we are focusing on the clinical study on education. That means teacher needs not only just theory, but also the practical the sense. And so we need how can we cultivate the student ability to the practical sense. So we are combining, associating the practical way and the theoretical way together like this. Okay, above 2 pictures and movies are the lessons in the universities, and below 2 pictures are the teachers are teaching in the actual schools. So we try to give those go on backward, those 2 situations more than once to connect the theory and practice to cultivate students' sense of the practical, cultivating student, pre-service education students the sense of practice. And one more thing is this is the very, very unique culture in Japan. Okay, Japanese teachers are very happy to show each other's lessons and study from the other teachers the teaching. and we call this is the lesson study. And nowadays the concept lesson study concept is spread to worldwide. So maybe most of you know what is lesson study. And I myself already try to introduce the Japanese style of the studying teachers themselves in the Thai schools. And this is a very good opportunity to know the Thai teachers, cultures, and also the exchange, the experience each other's. Okay, in this picture is one the shows the example of the what we did at that time. And main teacher is the Japanese teachers, and assistant teacher and observing teachers are Thai teachers. And those Japanese teacher and Thai teachers exchange their experience in these lessons. And after these lessons, they discussed about what they did in lessons by using the captured video. So, so those are good for promoting the teachers the sense of the practice. And the last moment, I'd like to mention about how to assess the STEM education. Okay, just I'm showing the briefly the basically my opinion is the practical assessment is efficient rather than the usual way of assessment. Okay, there are some reasons. One is the clear assessment for society from society, rather than only from the school and teachers. And the other is the cultivating individual competence. Actually, because the students have to show the very serious result in those situations. And my opinion is from now we don't have to evaluate and scoring so strictly, because that is nonsense in our recent society, because our society is changing so quickly, so very hard to evaluate the scoring statistically. Statically. Okay, and we believe that more practical and qualitative assessment will become more popular in the future. And I think we need more cost for assessment. That is what the human teacher have to do from now. Thank you very much. That is all my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Tairo Nomura, for sharing the insightful presentation on STEM education implementation of other Japan context. So let's open the floor. If you have any question, please raise your hand and our team will provide you a microphone with Dr. Nomura. Okay.
Yeah, good morning, Professor Nomura.
Morning.
Yeah, my name is Murni Ramli. I'm from Indonesia. So I just want to ask you, because I know that Japan also have a program called Super Science High School Project.
Yes.
Yeah, so could you please explain what the difference between the period of integrated studies and also the STEM issues and the Super Science High School Project? Because I think Super Science High School Project is also focusing on producing the high school students to be more have engagement in STEM issue? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very good question, and I'm very surprised that all of you know about the very clearly about the Japanese the situation. And yeah, yes, we also have the project Super Science High School, and that is mainly focusing on the more advanced schools, not all the schools in Japan. And that, from my point of view, that is also needed for the student. They want to study much more. But Super Science High School itself is not involving all the students to engage that program. Only the student, they want to study much more, can join that program. So that is the very big difference between what I mentioned today and what the Super Science High School doing. And of course, we need to provide the more higher level the education for the especially the gifted students. And yeah, from this point of view, Super Science High School's project is very effective, and already the students joined the program showed the very remarkable results resulting. For example, several of the high school students joining the scientific research with the university professors, or the high school student try to start the new company related to their study, like that. But not all the students. Very specific. The small number of schools are joining this program. Is that okay for my answer? Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
Thank you very much. Professor Nomura is really interesting, and I find it very useful from your experience sharing how do you implement STEM in the schools in Japan. I was just wondering regarding the how do you measure the achievement of the students, because I know it's not going to be easy just relying on the traditional examination. So I was wondering if you also require the student to do some project activities as their portfolio, and if so, do you also have the collaboration with the community so that maybe the student project could be implemented directly to solve the real problem facing in the society? And my second question, if I may, would be, I know that the role of the government or the support of government is very essential to support the STEM implementation. But you see, I mean, like in Japan, that you have a very advanced use of ICT, and also it's been evenly implemented in all parts, I think all parts of the region in Japan. But like in Indonesian case, we are very diverse in terms of the society, and also we like in remote areas where the ICT implementation is still low due to the for example, internet access is not evenly spread all over the regions. So what do you suggest like implementing STEM with the limitation use of ICT, especially in the remote areas. Thank you very much.
Mhm. Okay, thank you very much for your great, good questions. There are two questions. First question is about how to assess the student activities of the STEM education, in STEM education. Then, yeah, as you mentioned, we need the collaboration with the outside peoples of the schools, like like me, a specialist, and also the industry areas, the peoples, and also the government areas peoples, and also the citizens living in the daily life. Okay, the important point is how the student know the various answers for various sense of values in this slide, because the important point is our real world problem has no one best answer. Okay, from the different point of, there is the several point of views of evaluating what is the answer that is connected to the sense of values of each person, each people, each person. So first of all, we need what kind of the values are there in our daily life, our world. So to know those the various sense of values, we need to meet various kind of the people in our society. So that is, but not only just the specific person like me or the industry person or the government person, but all the people could become the outside the specialist for involving the STEM education in school. Okay, this comes from the recent issues of the school situation. The school is very, very close to the world, to the society, and separated. That is not good for the student to know what is this, why they are studying in school. So for the first questions, of course, we need the support of the outsiders, but all the people can support to involve the STEM education in school. And also you mentioned about the importance of the journal of the learning, portfolio, like portfolio. Yeah, because the learning is very, very dynamically phenomenon. So we need to capture how students study day by day. So we need to have the way to capture those information. So that is connected to the second questions. Okay, so from this point of view, ICT is very, very useful. Recently, many schools in Japan using the Google Classroom or the Microsoft Teams as tools to capture their learning day by day, to make the journal or a portfolio. But of course, we can use the traditional way, like the papers and notebook and pencils, like that. So important point is which part we focus for the assessment and involving the STEM education. Okay, ICT is just the tool, and okay, don't think, we don't have to think the ICT is necessary, definitely need to conduct the STEM education. Okay, because before the recent ICT coming, but still there are so many great people studying in the old style schools. So we can arrange, we can utilize the usual way, combining with the ICT as possible, as much as possible you can use to realize the STEM education, even in the Indonesia situation, I think. Thank you very much. Is it okay for your questions?
Yes, Professor. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. So our last question, yeah, should be from the chat box. So there is one question that in Japan, how do you integrate STEAM or STEM education for SDG, Professor?
Good. That is also very good questions. SDGs is one of the sense of values we treat. So at the beginning, we have to discuss about what is SDGs. And as you know, that there are 17 main the sense of values we have to think. But important point is we never push those values are good to students, but only show them. Now someone said SDGs is important, but what do you think? That is the beginning of the SDGs activities in STEM education. Because I showed you in this slide, and the important point is we have to know there are so many peoples in the world, and they have the various kinds of the sense of values. Okay, so we need to know those diversity, rather than we have to choose only one concept. Okay, so that is connected to what we are teaching engineering to the students in the STEM concept, because the engineering contains two main parts. One is how to do the problem solving, and second part is what kind of the value is your goal to solve the problem. Okay, and mainly that we have to focus on how to solve the problem. That part is more important rather than what kind of value you will you try to achieve. So once if you ask the student to you ask the student, please think how to achieve the STEM SDGs concept. Already you took away the opportunity of thinking what kind of values are there and what kind of values needed for us student thinking. Okay, and that is not good for the education to understand that our society is more complex and more diverse rather than the student thinking in their school. That is the main ideas of how to introduce STEM SDGs in STEM or STEAMs. Is that okay?
I hope our participants from the chat box receive this answer. So as time limited, before we move to the next session, so let's take a little break, about 15 minutes, and we will back here at 10:35 for the next session. So let's take a short break. Then we will come back to meet with the next session. So thank you, Professor Nomura, for this
Thank you very much.
presentation and challenging
you.
us this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
hope to work closely with you soon in the near future.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please keep in touch and please
Take a-
the
For 15.
tell me any questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's take a break for 15 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
A permanent. We heard this morning how science and technology permeates our life. Our introductory talk was written by ChatGPT. I did not create these slides by ChatGPT, just to let you know, but in fact, it can do a lot, you know, it permeates our life. And while we want kids have to understand how technology works. You know, I find it amazing. We have, I guess, about 15 people online, something like there's 15 people online. It's an amazing technological advantage. How does that happen? Most people cannot explain how we can send all that information over wires. Right, that we heard the wonderful talk by the scholar from Japan. There wasn't any glitches, right? A really clear, crystal clear video coming through. How does that happen? Right, so understanding
ไหมครับแจ้งเลยเดี๋ยวผมส่งให้
these technological
โอเคขอบคุณครับแล้วเดี๋ยวเบิกคืนนี่คือเบิกเข้าใครอะครับเข้าผมเลยหรือว่าต้องเข้าบริษัท
Okay, I'll go on. So it's technology is for all people. It's up to us to provide the opportunities to learn. If children don't have opportunities to learn, they won't learn. We have to create those environments that can really support children in learning. This will allow everybody to take part in the scientific enterprise. If it's going to the store and trying to figure out what kind of food I should buy, what's good and healthy for me to eat, to voting for particular educational policies, understanding science for all people is critical. And hopefully, if we can do a better job at improving education, then we will have a society which is sustainable and which is free and which will allow all people to learn. Yeah. Let's go on to the next one. I don't know. I don't know why this doesn't want to work. Okay, so focus area 2. And this will be a repeated theme that you'll hear about this afternoon as well. And we heard about it in the last talk as well. We have to move beyond kids just memorizing facts. We have to go to a place where learners can really use their knowledge to solve problems and make sense of phenomena. So this is a big one of the, for this, and the reason I raise these two first, this knowledge, science for all, but in the second one, a focus on usable knowledge. This is really a driver in the United States. How do we move from kids just knowing facts to them actually being able to apply their knowledge in new situations to solve problems and make explanations of phenomena? That is a critical aspect. Now, it's not, that movement isn't only true in the United States. It's also true in Germany. It's also true in China. It's true in many countries that I visited. We have to move beyond just kids knowing facts, the kids being able to use and apply those ideas in new situations. Second slide, please. Or next slide. So one of the ways in the US in which we do this, can you go to the next slide? Is what I like to call the figuring out process. And the figuring out process really engages kids in a situation. This relates back also to this, one of the points made by the last speaker, and how we have to create learning environments where kids really see the value in what they're learning. And so in our work, we start off by exploring a phenomena or solve a problem. Now, when I'm going to use the word phenomena, we're all science educators here, so I think we all know what phenomena is, but I'm just going to say a little bit about what a phenomenon is. A phenomena is a reoccurring event that happens in our world that we can explain. And it can be everything from my releasing the cell phone, I'm glad it wasn't mine, releasing the cell phone, it can fall, right? And we can explain why that happens. It always happens. We can make those predictions. It can also be something as beautiful as the birth of an organism, right? So and very complex to explain, right? So for something that's a little bit easier to explain, to something like birth that's very complex to explain. Those are phenomena. And so in my work, it works now? Yeah, so in my work, we start with events in nature that we want kids to basically explore. And those events in nature or those problems have to be motivating to kids. So it's not just any problem or any phenomena, it's phenomena that kids will find valuable and they want to learn. That allows them to ask their own questions about that. Now, this aspect of asking their own questions is really critical because it's what it causes kids to really be invested and want to expend energy in trying to make sense of it. Anytime there's something difficult, you have to have a reason for why you want to spend energy on it. And so we have to make sure that the phenomena that we pick, that kids are going to find valuable. And so this will allow them to ask their own questions. And often it's interesting, I've been doing this for numerous years now, we can make predictions on what the kids are going to be able to ask, so we can prepare ahead of time. This leads to the children being engaged in using scientific practices to figure out what's going on, so they can get involved in doing investigations, they can plan their investigations, they can collect and analyze data, they can build models, building new knowledge and figuring something out. So this leads them then to coming up with an explanation of that particular phenomena. And I'm going to just give you one example from some of the high school work that I do. This is from a unit called How Come I Can Eat Table Salt, but I Can't Eat Sodium? And for those of you who are chemists, this is much related to understanding the periodic table, but it's different than just saying we're going to now study the periodic table. As a chemist, I love the periodic table. Most kids could care less about the periodic. So I have to figure out how can I get them to really want to learn about those topics. So starting with a question like, how can I eat table salt, but I can't eat sodium because it's explosive, can get them involved. And it really deals with some really important learning goals related to the reactivity of materials. And so we start off by the kids actually observing how sodium explodes in water. This leads them to asking questions like, why is sodium so reactive, but sodium chloride is not? This can get them involved in doing various investigations with respect to what metals are explosive or which metals aren't explosive. And then this will then lead to new knowledge and also new questions that will propel the next situation. So much of the work that's going on in the United States right now by researchers in designing new curriculum focus on this process of figuring out. Now, related to this figuring out process, the next feature is this notion of getting kids engaged in using scientific knowledge. But in the United States, we've broken down that scientific knowledge into three vital points. One are the critical big disciplinary ideas of the field. These are ideas like energy, there are ideas like reactivity, there are ideas like biological evolution, plate tectonics. These are the big, powerful ideas that every learner really needs to have deep understanding of. That's the first type of knowledge. The second type of knowledge is understanding how to use scientific and engineering practices. Ideas like asking questions, designing investigations, and two new ones that I'll talk about, constructing models and using computational thinking, which again overlaps with our last speaker. Then the third form of knowledge are these ideas that cut across disciplines, like systems thinking, like patterns, like structure function. And I'll talk a little bit about more of that in a little bit. But in the US, these three aspects cannot be taught separately. They work together. So if you're going to actually really form powerful new ideas in learners, we have to create these situations where we can use all three of these ideas together. And that's what happens when we engage kids in making sense of phenomena or figuring out phenomena. So I put up here these this image of this rope. And the reason I did that is because each one of those knowledge strands, scientific practices, disciplinary ideas, cross-cutting concepts, they each have something unique to contribute. But when we can put them together, all three of them, you get something much stronger, right? A rope that has tight winds in it is much stronger than just any one of its single strands. And so what we want to do is create situations where kids actually use all three of the dimensions of scientific knowledge in order to solve problems. This will allow them to gain deeper knowledge that will allow them to solve more complex problems and more complex phenomena, really helping develop that usable knowledge that children need as they move forward. Now, there's two emerging practices that I really want to speak about because these are really important. One is constructing, testing, and redesigning, revising scientific models. This is a big emphasis in the US. Can we really get kids to construct models? Now, if you think back to your education, when was it that you first constructed your own model? Often what happens is we use models that someone else created. The emphasis nowadays is for kids actually to construct models to explain phenomena or provide solutions to problems. It's a very different aspect. And it's really important to support kids in putting ideas together. Because when you build a model, you're often taking one idea and you're showing how it relates to another idea, how it relates to another idea, and how that works together in a system to really produce some outcome. And so this emphasis on model building has been really critical. The second aspect that's new in the United States, and it's also, we heard a nice conversation about this from our last speaker as well, is that of using computational thinking. Often we don't support our kids in this effort, right? Computational thinking really engages, and I really like the last comment the speaker made. Computational thinking does not mean getting kids involved in coding. I don't know about you, I used to be a really good coder of Fortran. I don't know how many of you remember Fortran. Most of you probably don't remember Fortran because you're too young, right? Fortran is an old language, but I used to be a whiz at it, right? But does it help me nowadays? No, but some of the ideas like subroutines, breaking the problem down, that is what remains. And what we have to do is we have to support kids in understanding how to think computationally, which involves these various different processes of decomposing problems, constructing artifacts, computational out with algorithmic thinking, generating, analyzing data, testing and debugging. So critical, right? Often learners are a little bit hesitant to test and then fix up what they did, even though it doesn't work, right? We don't have that mindset. Often in schooling, because we focus primarily on trying to get the right answer, the kids fail to want to revise. And so this testing and bugging in making iterative refinements is really critical. So computational thinking is really being pushed forward in the United States. It's not that we have all the answers of how to do it, but there's this emphasis that we have to focus on it. There's also an emerging cross-cutting concept that is really critical, that for whatever reason in science education, STEM education, we haven't focused on it much in the past. And that is the idea of system thinking. Often systems have been brought up in biology, but as a scientist, we all think in terms of systems. We all think about what's inside our system and what's outside our system. And yet children, learners often don't think that way. So there's been this emphasis in the US to really support kids in developing system thinking, because if we're going to solve complex problems like climate change, like providing healthy food for all learners throughout the globe, we really need to think of us as terms of systems, which in some respects overlaps in some respects with computational thinking, because you have to define your system, what's in, what's out. That's sort of like decomposing your system. You have to engage in causal thinking, how one variable relates to another variable, relates to another variable. And a really critical aspect is understanding the connections between those variables and how in some systems you actually have feedback that we often fail to think about, right? This feedback mechanisms are really critical. And the other critical aspect of system thinking is how it happens across time. Often in science, we want to think of A impacts B. And that happens a lot. But often what happens also in science is things accumulate over time and they build up, causing different effects to happen, different effects to emerge. And so getting kids to think in terms of systems thinking about how things change across time is really critical. The fifth focus area, which I've mentioned already, but I want to emphasize slightly more, is this notion of the role of phenomena. This is critical because it links to really engaging kids in wanting to learn. And so we have to pick phenomena or problems, you might say, that can really spark students' interest in wanting them to ask questions. At the same time, there's some really challenging aspects, because we also have to make sure that that phenomena we pick really focuses on what we want kids to learn, right? So for us as educators, we have a challenge in trying to identify meaningful phenomena, but those meaningful phenomena also have to link to what we really want kids to learn and be able to do and know. And we have to make sure that kids are compelled by it, right? Are they really compelled by it? Can they really ask questions? Can they design investigations? Can they really carry out? So phenomena are really critical, but we as educators have to make sure we pick the right kind of phenomena to focus kids on wanting to learn. The sixth focus area, which is essential, we really know a lot about this. And in science, in STEM, we haven't necessarily focused on the importance of coherence. In mathematics, in language arts, we know a little bit more about the development nature of how kids learn across time. But in STEM, in science, we haven't focused. Building coherent systems mean that how do we go from across time, how do we support kids in building ideas? And you can think of coherence both in terms of a unit, how do ideas within a unit build? You can think of coherence also in terms of how do ideas build across a school year, but you also want to think about coherence is how ideas build across the years, not only within, but across. And if we can build systems in educational systems in which our learners from the earliest grades, K through 12, are really building on one idea after another idea, we're going to have different kind of learners at the end of our K-12 education system. Just give you an example. I mentioned how many of us as learners never got involved in building scientific models as learners. And they're challenging. If I would pose in front of you right now, let's build a model X, we would have some challenges because it's not a routine thing that we do. But if we start in kindergarten and we get kids involved, or first or second grade, get kids involved in building models and slowly build this idea of building models across time. By the end of 12th grade, we're going to have very sophisticated learners. In fact, I have done work in 3rd grade and 2nd grade where I've actually had kids develop some very sophisticated models. To my own surprise, I had my own personal doubts. Are they really going to be able to do this? But with given the opportunities to learn, even young children are able to build very sophisticated models. As long as we build, if we take ideas systematically, break down and provide scaffolding for them to be able to do it. So establishing coherence with respect to disciplinary ideas, cross-cutting concepts, and scientific practices, both within a unit, across a school year, and across school years, can really support kids in building ideas. And trying to establish a coherent educational system, which I'm putting up here, is essential, right? We need to have in our educational system coherence, which means that we have to start with a set of learning goals that we agree with. Those learning goals then impact much of what happens in classroom. It influences our curriculum materials, it influences our instruction, it should influence our assessment. That also, from a policy perspective, should influence the kind of resources we provide classrooms. It should influence the kind of professional learning. That will then lead to student learning. That's a coherent educational system. Everything has to work together. And if we can design these coherent educational systems, then we're going to really, in the long run, really provide greater opportunities for all children to learn. I was just going to focus on this one just a bit. In the United States, since this is a conference on STEM education, there is a continuum of thinking about what it's supposed to be perspectives and not prospectives, but you have the wrong, there's a new set of slides. Right, anyways, there's a continuum of perspectives. At one end, it's thinking just about STEM disciplines individually, right? So often in the United States, we refer to STEM and we think of engineering, we think of chemistry, we think of physics, biology, but as separate entities. Versus on the other end of all those ideas being integrated together. And there are positives and negatives related to both of them. If we go to the one end of the continuum, right, STEM as separate disciplines, how do we then get kids to actually use ideas across discipline? Most of the problems we face are not disciplinary specific. They cross disciplines. So if we want to get kids to think interdisciplinary, we have to provide situations. So there's some limitations in thinking of STEM as separate disciplines. At the other end, you can think of integrated STEM, which could apply kids the tools to be able to think in an interdisciplinary manner. Now, the fear there is that, will they really learn the disciplinary content that they need? So for instance, if you think of even solutions like providing food for the nations, for the world, right? Kids really have to understand the photosynthetic process. What's the role of photosynthesis and respiration? Now, in order to understand that, you really have to understand energy and the transfer of energy. So how do you get kids to actually these challenging ideas of photosynthesis and respiration, ideas of energy? How do you really get them to understand those deep disciplinary ideas in an integrated STEM? So we just have to be cautious that if we move away from STEM as separate disciplines, we still get the kids to understand the important ideas that they need to move forward. It's a critical aspect. So these are just some challenges that we have to worry about as we move forward. And so as we think about creating these interdisciplinary programs, we need to make sure that we have the right type of curriculum materials that really will support kids in thinking interdisciplinary, but also at the same time, developing the deep knowledge that they need of certain disciplinary ideas. We're going to have to provide teachers with professional learning, because most teachers, myself included, I taught for a number of years. I was a chemistry teacher. Does that mean that I could then go and teach successfully in interdisciplinary world? So we have to make sure that we provide teachers with the appropriate type of professional learning, as well as the appropriate resources that they will need. So there's some challenges. The 10th focus is in the US is getting kids to develop a sense of a scientific disposition, thinking like a scientist, right? This is moving away from just knowing science to actually be able to question situations. Why does this happen? Do I have enough evidence to really support my claim? These are critical ways, critical dispositions of how scientists think, and why we don't want every child in our world to become a scientist, because we need good artists, we need good people who can cook wonderful food, we need people who can do other kind of important tasks. We want everybody to think like a scientist, so that when they hear a claim, they ask themselves, is that supported by appropriate evidence? That they wonder about the world that's out there. So we want to have kids develop this notion of important scientific dispositions. So those are the major threads that are currently happening in the US. I hope you saw some of the interesting connections between the professor from Japan and some of the ideas I made, because those linkages are really critical. And with that, there's my contact information. I'm going to pop back to the first slide because I forgot to mention something to you. And then we'll go to questions. But if you go to the first slide, there's a tiny URL, and you can download the slides there. I don't know if any of you noticed that. So this, if you just type in tinyurl.com US STEM Thailand, you can get this talk. So that's available to you. And with that, I'll take some questions if there's a question or two.
Thank you, Professor Joseph, for the presentation. You highlighted really important issues in STEM education. My question is about, you had a slide where, there's a line between integrated approach and separate. If I may, yeah, this one. The thing is that in Kazakhstan, we have, by the way, my name is Almas, I'm from Kazakhstan.
I know your team.
In Kazakhstan, the curriculum is designed so we have separate subjects: chemistry, physics, biology, and our kids tend to think about phenomena from the prism of the subject. Looking at stones, for example, they say that it belongs to, for example, to physics. Looking at plants, they think about plants from the prism of biology. But in real life, as you said, they deal with problems which are interdisciplinary. You cannot divide, you cannot separate all those things. And we face that problem as well when we try to, integrate the lessons with teachers, physics teacher with chemistry teacher. They try to, design a interdisciplinary lesson, but the curriculums, the syllabus are, different. You cannot combine the syllabus. For instance, atoms and molecules in chemistry are in, for example, the third semester. In physics, it's like maybe in 8th grade. And how you what would you advise in terms of, you know, integrating those lessons? What should we focus on? And should we maybe start with our curriculum, start with science in middle school and then go to, you know, separate the disciplines in high schools, maybe how we should deal with such an issue? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can't say I necessarily have the answer for all countries. In US, we're still pretty separate disciplines as well. So it's not an easy transition to make. But if you stop and you think about the world, and your example biology is wonderful, right? So as a chemist, when I look at a plant, I think of chemical processes, right? So that's what I think of, right? I see their beauty. I mean, I love being in Thailand because of the beauty of the flowers. Coming from a northern state, we don't have these gorgeous orchids all over the place, you might say. And so I can see the beauty in the plants, but I think about the chemical, what's going on chemically, right? I also think about the energy transfer. And what we have to do is help kids understand when we're in a biology class that there's a lot of chemistry going on. Photosynthesis and respiration is basically a very complex chemical process. And the energy transfer that's coming in is really critical. So we have to work to support this interdisciplinary thinking about how energy isn't just a physics concept. Energy cuts across all the disciplines. And unfortunately, very different. The United States is trying to change that. I think it's going to be a slow process. Point of as educators, we have to start moving that process. And I don't necessarily think the solution is middle school integrated in high school itself. Although I do want to emphasize that we can't forget about we also within that integrated world, we also have to ensure that kids learn really critical.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Joe, for the amazing presentation introducing about the US STEM practices. So the things that come to my mind is just if USA have the next generation standard of science and is consists of 3 core ideas, cross-cutting and also practices, I can imagine that the teachers have already provided with the very complex and also details, how to say, how to teach science, integrating with all kind of technology, engineering, and mathematics. My question is, what looks like the teacher education in USA? I mean, for training the teachers to be able to teach science, and also they have to know about engineering, technology, and mathematics. What kind of curriculum that implemented in teacher in College of Education in USA? Yeah, thank you.
Interesting enough, education in the United States. Use this one. Okay. Education in the United States is a state, depends upon the state. So every state has their own right to select their own standards. And we think of it really as an independent aspect. That said, depending on where you go to school, it's really going to impact what you learn. So for instance, in my home state, Michigan, we actually adopted what you referred to as the next generation science standards. as a methods teacher, and I do teach secondary science methods, that means it's my obligation to support my pre-service teachers in helping to understand what those are and what does curriculum look like and what does instruction look like in that world, right? So, but that's not necessarily true for all states. All states have not adopted the NGSS, or although most states in the United States do look at the framework for K-12 science education as sort of a policy document to guide their thinking of their standards. But there's also the fear that how do you support the pre-service teacher in understanding of the ideas as well? And so in the US, I would say there's a range of what happens, right? There are some people who have been involved. So the next generation of science standards has now been out for 10 years. And there are some people who have a really deep understanding of it, but there's some people who have a very superficial understanding of it. I remember once at a conference I was at, and the speaker in front of me stood up and said, "Oh, I did that many years ago." It's not true, right? I mean, I was one of those people too. I was his age. I know what we went through in science education. What NGSS is asking for nowadays, with the integration of those three ideas of disciplinary core ideas, cross-cutting concepts, and practices, isn't what we did 20 years ago, right? It's related to kids doing inquiry, but 20 years ago, we had separate inquiry standards and separate content standards. And nowadays we're saying those have to be integrated together. So within the United States, we have a long way to go, I would argue, about trying to change our educational system so that everybody's getting very similar type of education. Some of it's because of how big the United States is. Some of it has to do with because the United States, each state has the right to decide on what the education is. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. May I ask the second question, sir?
Sure.
Yeah. So I know that in NGSS, there is a learning progression of the core ideas. I'm wondering about the practices one. Do you have also learning progression for the practices? For example, in STEM, we learn about how to teach our students, to train our students to be a problem solver. So do you also apply the progression for be a problem solver?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our colleague here mentioned the idea of learning progressions, which is thinking about how kids' ideas develop across time. That's related to the notion of coherence that I mentioned. In the framework for K-12 science education, they really outline a progression of the disciplinary ideas, how they can develop from elementary grades to middle grades to high school. So you can take an idea like force and how force can be introduced at the K2 level, builds at the 3, 4, 3, 6, 5 level, gets more sophisticated in middle school and even more sophisticated in high school. So you can take big ideas like force, big ideas like energy, big ideas like evolution, and you can see a progression of how those ideas develop across time. How the three aspects work together was not outlined in the framework. And it's an active area of research that's currently going on that our National Science Foundation is very interested in. So I'm currently involved in 2 projects. One project at the middle school level, in which we're building a learning progression that integrates disciplinary ideas in physical science with scientific practices related to modeling and scientific explanations. And I'm also involved in a high school project in which we're also further integrating disciplinary ideas related to energy and interactions of matter, also with explanations and with modeling. Because those ideas don't develop separately, right? So ideas of practices, if it's asking questions, designing models, aren't going to develop in isolation to the disciplinary ideas. So it's an active area of research in our nation right now. And I don't know of anybody that has a complete breakdown of the practices. Although Christina Schwartz has a couple of articles on, and I can send you those references. Christina Swartz has a progression on teaching modeling, and Kate McNeil and Lima Berlin have one on scientific explanations. And I believe Jonathan Osborne has one on argumentation. But they're separate from disciplines, disciplinary ideas. And the argument nowadays is that they have to really be integrated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions?
So Professor Cho, there is one question from the chat box.
Okay.
So yeah, it said that in your opinion, what is the difference and benefit of STEM education and STEAM education? Now in Thailand, we try to apply art to STEM education.
It's a great question. I haven't gotten in a debate between STEAM and STEM. And I like the often in the United States, the A part actually deals with design, right? Because design often has a lot to do with, you could say, artistic aspects, right? But I haven't gotten involved in those debates. I would argue that it's really, for myself, I love art, but I also think design is really important. So I would argue that within STEM education, we really want to focus on helping kids understand design. That's another aspect of what we have failed to do in our educational aspect, is really helping kids understand how do you design something to come up with a solution. So I haven't really taken part in that debate. Other comments? Yeah.
STEM spirit disciplines and integrated STEMs. Well, I would like to reflect to my experience as students. In my past, well, I'm almost retired. So I remember, I know, but I don't understand. Later, when I teach, moments, right? My question is that you stated that the transformations is getting slow, right? Related the question from my brothers. But now we have the technology, which is very powerful. Do you think that the technology can help to foster transformations? For sometimes somehow I like you confused STEM as subjects or STEM as approach. Okay.
Right. Interesting, right? That's another way of thinking about STEM as subjects or as an approach. But your question also was, can technology help, right? And I started. So I was a high school teacher for 8 years. In that 8 years in which I was a high school teacher, technology really hit the scene. It started getting integrated into education. And back then, back in 1974, 76, when I started teaching, probes using sensors to collect data first came out. And of course, using sensors to automatically collect data and to graph that data and to sort of graph it in different ways almost instantaneously has lots of power to really support kids in learning. So it's a wonderful tool that we should apply in classrooms. As time went on, actually one of the reasons I really wanted to go on and get my PhD, which focused on using technology, was because it was a really simple situation. Again, as I mentioned, I'm a chemist. My background's in chemistry, and I did research in chemistry for several years as well. There was a little simple situation that said, if we started the computer counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, how long would it take to get to 1 mole? 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. Most people would predict with the computer counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that within an hour, it would be to 6.02 times the 23rd, because kids can't see the scale of how big it is. And actually, if you keep it counting overnight, it doesn't even get close to it, because that's such a huge, huge number. And so, which really surprised a lot of my students, including myself. So technology, probes, simulations, and nowadays we have wonderful simulations that kids can explore. The use of even more advanced artificial technologies to help us should be tools to support learners in developing the kind of problem-solving skills, developing the depth of knowledge that we want. But even tools like probes haven't been successfully implemented in schools yet. So and that's the reason I mentioned the sensor example, right? I don't walk in the classrooms seeing, and while there's wonderful array of probes that are out there, I don't walk in the classrooms and see them being used on a daily, in a daily way, beneficial to helping kids learning. Same thing is true with simulations. Same thing is actually true of using the web to find information, right? So we have a ways to go to figure out how to really embed technologies and provide the resources for all children to use it. I think it was from some country, I can't remember, it was just talking about how they don't have the conductivity for all classrooms, right? We have to worry about that. The same thing is true in the United States, why some of our urban areas have good conductivity. Lots of our rural areas do not, right? So that's provides an inequity for kids as far as learning. So I think we have a ways to go into figuring out how to use tools. But I like to think of them as tools to support learning. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. So our question is, so based on every country has own approach and it develops differently, right? And based on that economic capacity and everything, does a STEM approach supposed to be differently? I mean, we have like different needs based on our economic, right? And that's why does the STEM approach supposed to be differently in each country? What do you think? Thank you.
Could you repeat the last part?
I mean, based on economically, we have different needs, like in technologies and everything. So does the STEM approach in terms of teaching the students become a teacher at the university, does STEM approach supposed to be differently in each country? Do we need the regional like aspects of like a teaching, like in our region we are more like focusing on agriculture, so should we like let's say use the different approach teaching this team?
Right. So again, this goes back to the last speaker's comment, as well as my comments on phenomena. I think we want to pick the context and the phenomena that are important to your students, but still help them learn the big ideas. So if you're in an agricultural area, certainly focusing, and there's tons of wonderful phenomena with respect to energy, chemistry, biology that exist in those areas, but you want to be able to ask questions or pick phenomena that are related to your area. If you're in a large urban area, you probably want to pick more questions that are related to your particular area, right? So this is one of the appeals for me in being involved in this particular project is how do you actually take materials? You'll be working together with different countries, right? And how do you take those materials, and even though they have the same learning goals, same structure, how do you take them and modify them so it actually fits your context? So I wouldn't expect that your rural area would be the same thing as what we pick here in Bangkok, right? So we might have a unit on communicable diseases, but slightly different structure happening in a rural area than you would in Bangkok. I'm going to pay attention to time and I'll be around for the rest of the idea, but right now I'm cutting into your lunch hour and in a discussion period. So I think we're going to move on to the discussion period. Is that correct? Yes.
So while we're waiting for Dr. Kesala, there is one comment from Professor Nomura. He said that from his point of view, STEM education is not a subject, but an approach, attitude of education. STEM education is not replace usual subject, but provide the aspect of what is the essence of those subjects. From his thinking, give opportunity and utilizing knowledge and skill they learn in usual subject to cultivate student ability of problem solving ability. That message from Professor Nomura.
You know, you can think of STEM as a way of thinking and approach. In a separate disciplines. That's why I try to give this idea of this continuum of thinking about what STEM's like. I mean, I think this is a nice statement. I have nothing. It's great.
Yeah, I think thank you so much, Professor Joe. And I think this morning we heard two insightful sharing, right, from Dr. Nomura from Japan and Joe from the US. I think two countries have different perspective and yes, different context, right? In Japan, Dr. Nomura said that STEM already there for a long time, so it's not new. And in the US, the NGSS tried to guide many states in how to help the teachers think about interdisciplinary approach, right? So now I would like you to take a moment and think about how about in your country, when you think about STEM education, what do you think of STEM education? Is it something that what is your takeaway from today, this morning, that you think that how STEM education will look like in your system? So at your table, I'd like you to brainstorm, and because the time is pressing, so I will let you discuss only for 10 minutes, and then maybe some table would like to report out what you have so that we can end our morning with sharing from some groups. Okay? Yes, 10 minutes, please. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I know that there are many more that you want to discuss. But I think for sharing the purpose, okay, I'm going to use this signal. Everyone, please, if you see this signal, and then you will raise your hand like what I'm doing. Everyone, please, if you see the signal like this, please follow by raising your hand, and then we will be silent. Yeah, so we use this signal in the classroom. Yeah, instead of using the microphone like that, right? So we use this instead. So I know that this is very short, and I'm so sorry that I have to interrupt your conversation. So any one would like to represent your group and share what you have discussed at the table? And I think this idea will be evolving, right, over time, over the period of the meeting that we are going to discuss. So how about from like when you're reading Chinese, right, you read from the right to the left, right? How about Kazakhstan?
Good morning, everyone. We are from Kazakhstan, and our thoughts. So first, we like that STEM is approach. An approach. It's not a different discipline. Second, we think that, for example, for our country, for example, Kazakhstan is very big. And we have regions, for example, West Kazakhstan is a oil region, oil, gas, petroleum. So we think that STEM must be connected with the region. As my colleague said, for example, Central Kazakhstan is more agricultural. So it means it should be connected with the society of regions. And next one, STEM must be connected with a level of thinking skills of students, and it depends on teachers' skills, I guess. And yeah, STEM must be connected with government standard. So because we, for example, in our country, we can change it. And we like that art is design. Yeah, it's not only painting something, it must be designing, yeah, creativity.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. So you try to focus also on contextualize them, right, across the region of your big country, right? And then the thinking skills that you would like to focus, the A, which is the not just only the art, but the design. Yeah, and then most importantly, because teachers always ask that, is it aligned with the standards, right? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, for this group who would be honored to present.
So I will try, but please help me, other teams member. So from Indonesia, we just talking about, because we actually have implemented STEM education in our schools, and we try to think what the obstacles, why our STEM education do not go smooth. In each region we are from 3 universities. So we try to think that reasons, and we just look at the presentation from Professor Nomura and also Professor Joe that show us that we have a different curriculum structure. So our curriculum still focus on one discipline of science, and we do not introduce our teachers to interdisciplinary. Even now in our new curriculum, we already have integrated science in a high school and also in junior high, and also we have thematic science in elementary, but actually our teachers still have a lack of training, so they implement a soul of discipline of science. So, but we think that it's quite difficult for us to reform our curriculum. So we will start from our institution by, we are thinking to make a new course to teach or to train our teachers, student teachers, because they will be teachers at elementary, junior high, and also senior high. We are from the faculty of teacher training. So the more important things is thinking about how to revise our curriculum. And the second one, we are also thinking that our teacher is not like bottom up. I mean, the idea will not come from the teachers. Our teacher habit is just top down. So it means that we need to make a lot of module of STEM, and then just train them to implement that thing. So, well, that's probably difficult, but we try to do in our in each institution who represent Indonesia today.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm really pleased because you're now thinking forward already, thinking about how are you going to implement them in your in the institution that you can, right? Even though you aware that there is the limitation about the curricular standards that might not permit that, or maybe to change it might be a challenge, but you try to think from the institutions. Yeah, thank you so much. So last but not least,
Thank you. In our table, we have folks from KMUTT and Chulalongkorn University. We discussed about the situation of STEM in Thailand. We see that we have some current issues that pretty similar to Japan that we heard this morning, especially when Professor Tairo Nomura talked about STEM in Japan is not new, and teachers in Japan knows about the STEM as an integrated approach that's pretty similar to us. But for us in Thailand, when STEM education came to our community, we thought it's similar to the integrated approach in teaching. But that time we focus a lot on science content and how to integrate with other subjects area and other disciplines. So nowadays, when we observe what happened in STEM education in schools, we can see that many teachers and many science educators see the importance of STEM education. We can see that IPST had a lot of training involving all the teachers to train how to teach STEM. But from what we saw, we still have problems with separation between the way of thinking, like engineering design and computational thinking, and the science concepts. And that's pretty much similar to earlier in US, as Professor Krasik said about the importance of the use of the knowledge. I think that's a lot of problem that we face. Today, many schools has STEM as an election courses, but the way they teach and the approach they use has a lot of variation, depends on the teachers and depends on the school. And still, they don't use a lot of connection between the thinking and the content. So we talked about what should be. We think ideally, if we can have the national curriculum that focus on the real world problem and help us design what subject and what concepts should involve in that problem, that would be wonderful. But we know that it will be very complicated to make. So for us, the future of STEM education can be from the teachers level or the pre-service teachers level to help them make the connection with the current courses that they teach, and how to integrate the process of thinking and connecting the concepts that they teach with other courses. I think that will be more appropriate to practice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think Thailand and Indonesia also share similar limitations about how the current teachers might have limited capacity, maybe lacking the capacity building program or the curricula that can help or guide them to connect the discipline and then the thinking and practices process by students, right? So I think from 3 countries, you voiced the limitation that we have, and you focused and emphasized on the importance of the capacity building, the units, right, the materials that help. So in this afternoon, we are going to be shared by Professor Joe about what is a quality of effective STEM learning unit, because this is the first step that if we are going to introduce STEM learning, what do we provide for our teachers? And he will share with you the framework and good practices when we implement STEM learning units or design STEM learning units. And then we will have Dr. Prachiyapong to share the case that he has experience in designing and piloting STEM learning unit. And then we will have a good sharing of your thought about that, because in the next 2-3 days, the working team will be starting working on adopting, customizing STEM learning unit and think about how teachers should be trained how to use those. So because the time is pressing, we are sorry that we have to rush your lunch. Okay, you can think about that. You have more days to enjoy the lunch. If you think that, oh, I want to have this, maybe tomorrow you have more time. So today we have to come back here before 1 o'clock, because the afternoon session start at 1. So enjoy your lunch. Yeah, and meet you at 1 o'clock, please. Yeah. Yeah. And Dr. Nomura and the team who joined the Zoom meeting, thank you so much for your sharing. And yeah, we hope to see you again next time. And we appreciate your insightful sharing for this morning. Thank you.
So please enjoy your lunch at Greenhouse Room, the same floor here, once you exit the room. Yes. Greenhouse Room.